this luncheon session. And then I really want in New York, North Korean mission to United States. They have to have a copy of you send a mail to them and make them to read this paper. And then, of course, back to your question, politics and economics intertwined. And then intentionally, I don't want to touch any politics at all. However, as I said earlier, in my opinion, for their regime security, in my opinion, WMD is no good for their regime security at all. But economic security or gradual economic development is better for them in terms of regime security. That's not my intention. But as they improve, they may have in better position to maintain their regime.
I saw him in the back.
Yeah. Bill Brown, I'm teaching some at GW University. I think actually I'd take push back a little bit on your paper, in the sense that one thing I think is totally, naive to think the North Korean government's going to accept South Korean won. I mean, that would mean they would have to pay their soldiers South Korean won. I mean, that's just, short of reunification, it's just not going to happen. I don't know why it's worth talking about. The idea of South Korean side forcing the use of South Korean money makes a lot of sense to me. I quite like that idea. But again, you have to convince them to accept it. The one, two thoughts I have. One suggestion. You're really too young, probably. I grew up in Korea in the 50s and 60s. And one of the most remarkable, incredibly successful transformations of a monetary system took place in South Korea in 1962. The kind of root fixing of a tortured monetary system. South Korean won was useless. Not as bad as North Korean won, but it was pretty useless back then. Park Chung-hee was able to use a lot of different reforms, but essentially money and banking reforms, to transform South Korea in probably the most successful experiment, I would say, in economic history of the last century. It took South Korea from a beggar country to a middle-income country. My suggestion is you look at that experience and start applying it to North Korean thinking. It has a lot of it's not taking over North Korea, but it's all about juche, it's all about creating your own monetary system that has some strength to it. It's about creating interest rates, return on capital. It's certainly capitalism. They're not going to accept it without a huge change there. But you might be able to convince them. But I would suggest that you look back at South Korean. They're the ones to look at. Don't look at Bolivia, for heaven's sake, or Panama. I mean, those aren't the right examples to use.
Well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate your comment. Your comment remarks are really expected. And this paper, one paper, I cannot take care of everything, simultaneously. So the other night, I had a conversation with my wife, and then she never thought about me writing a book. And then I suggested that, do you think it's a good idea for me to write a book? And if I decide to write the book, I'm going to incorporate your suggestion in there completely. I didn't thought about 5 chapters in my book in that area. And then in terms of whether or not practical or not, you take a look at Europe. I mean, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, nobody expected that they're going to have a single common currency. Germany, France, they were enemies, right? I mean, sometimes, unthinkable can be achieved. Who knows, I mean, in my opinion, for North Korean leadership, wonization is, frankly speaking, their last resort to return to a normal economic status. Without it, impossible, based on the balance of payments. I mean, as I said earlier, because of the WMD, they have United Nations-sponsored sanctions, embargoes. They cannot survive.
Yes.
Well, my name is Keenan from the Bank of Korea. Well, your idea about one-ization is very interesting, but and it is very intriguing for as the point of view of Korean, because we are very sympathetic to North Korea. But however, I think we have to be very cautious to making the one-ization more practicable, because there are lots of costs also from the point of South Korean. Once we put lots of quantity of money into the North Korean, so South Korean won will have the expansion of monetary quantity, and if those money South Korean won reflows towards South Korea, then there will be huge economic lots of things could happen to the South Korean economy, and the dollarization is different from the one-ization, because the United States itself is a very huge country, and El Salvador is a very small country. But in terms of the size of South Korean economy and the North Korean economy, I think it will be very hard for the South Korean to make control of all size of the size of quantity of money that has to be put into the North Korean. So, it is really. I also, as a South Korean, we want to have North Korea to use our South Korean won, but before you push forward the one-ization, I think you have to be more thinking about the cost of the one-ization inside the South Korean economy.
All right, thank you. And then I had a chance to talk to a lady from Federal Reserve Atlanta, and she did, in this paper I cited her paper, and she told me that initially U.S. government, federal government, including Federal Reserve, they were uncomfortable with the trend of dollarization. And then based on all the initial assessment and everything, that's not the case. So here, in terms of size economy between the U.S. and those two countries, and however, you had a chance to look at the GNI comparison between South Korea and North Korea, about 12 times, and then per capita GDP 17 times. And in my opinion, I think South Korea, they have good enough cushion information for that. And recently, I was really frustrated by the decision by Samsung investing in Vietnam. They're going to produce 100 million cell phones. That's about, I believe, at least $3 billion business times 20 years, maybe 50 years. That's about a $50 billion project. And why not in North Korea? So I think, again, one-ization, it doesn't mean that just giving money. But as the essence of my paper is, I'm very frustrated why they don't do intra-trade with confidence and credibility. So I don't want to say, but why they do a dumb thing like North Korean people, like for example the gas industrial complex. One of the reasons is probably Kim Jong-il, he doesn't understand what's going on in the rest of the world. So the best thing is invite Kim Jong-il to the United States and have a tour.
We have time just for these last two questions. We'll start in the back end.
Keenan from Treasury. I just have a very simple question. When you were thinking about this, doing this paper, how did you imagine, how open would the border be between North and South Korea? Would there be complete price and wage convergence?
I thought about it, about the DMZ, the fiscal DMZ. And then the difference between East Germany and West Germany, they didn't have a fiscal DMZ. So China and Hong Kong, in my opinion, come to think of it, actually it's a good thing to have a DMZ, right? So control, between the flow of people between South and North, at least some kind of citizen card or something like that, what they do between Hong Kong and China. So I think in terms of price convergence, I mean, if as long as we maintain the DMZ, then the conversion is going to be very slow and light.
Reflecting some of the questions and comments made, also as one of the